hey, if you've not yet noticed, Pastor Scott is not here. Pastor Scott has been given the incredible honor and privilege of speaking at the Church of God Canada camp meeting, and so he's in Canada. Him and Elizabeth are in Canada. He's going to be preaching and speaking multiple times there for their camp meeting. He's with Dr. Lennox Walker and those great people up in our friends up north, and so just pray for Pastor Scott over the next few days, and pray that God would meet with them and God would do everything that God wants to do in their meetings together. Well, today we're going to talk about, we're kind of at that halfway point in life, right? Some of you don't like to hear that. I just made some of you very upset. You're like, oh my gosh, time's going by so fast, but we're at the halfway point of 2023. Whether you like it or whether you don't like it, it's just the truth. We're at the halfway point of 23, and I think it's important for us sometimes in life to just we hit maybe, if you're a sports guy, this is kind of like halftime, right? And at halftime, you can make adjustments, you can analyze, you can say, okay, what was working for us in the first half that we want to continue to do? Maybe what are some things that is not working out so well that we want to change? And so today I just want to talk to you just for a few moments on the idea of taking back your life. Taking back your life, or if you were to word it a different way, it would be simply called the comeback. Anybody like a good comeback story? Wow. Listen, hey, Dustin, can we just add like 30 more minutes to this countdown clock? That would be awesome. These people they're going to be here for the long haul today, right? How many like a good comeback story? You they're like, come on now, we got to get out of here. I got a lunch reservation. My pool's waiting on me. I got to get my suntan lotion on, right? But we're at the halfway point, and we use this metric at the church to evaluate everything that we do, right? This is just kind of a freebie. This is not in the notes that I gave them. I just kind of wrote this down as I was studying last night. We use these three metrics to analyze the things that we're doing. This is also will work great in your business and will work great in your personal life. Here's these three things. They're not going to be on the screens. Number one is expand. How can we make it bigger? Right? As you analyze, as you evaluate what's going on in your life, you can ask your question, what can we expand, right? If it's working, we need to make more room, right? We're in that phase right now. Children's ministry, our family ministry is growing exceedingly abundantly beyond what we can ask or think, right? So that's what's taking place across the hallway. So we're beginning to ask ourselves the question, how can we expand? Right? The second thing is enhance. How can we make it better? You can ask that question in your life. How can we enhance you can ask your marriage or your wife or your spouse, how can we enhance our marriage? How can we enhance our family? How can we enhance our home? How can we enhance our business? How can I enhance my health, right? You can do this in every arena of life. And the last one is just as important, and it's eliminate. What's just not working anymore that you just need to stop doing? These are three things that you can do to analyze. I'm sure these are three things that every coach walks into a locker room, whether that be on the Pee Wee League or whether that's like the coach walking into the locker room at halftime of the Super Bowl. What are the things that we can expand on? What are the things that we can enhance? Or what are some things that we just need to simply stop doing? So if I ask you today to evaluate your life at the halfway point, and I ask you to give yourself a grade, what grade would you give yourself? 2023 is at the halfway point. I know many of you came into 23, you had high expectations. You probably set a lot of New Year's Eve resolutions. You set some goals. You set some agenda things in your life. How would you grade yourself at the halfway point of 2023? Is life going the way that you wanted it to go? Is life kind of following the script that you put into place? Or is maybe your life, like most of our lives, is that we all had good intentions, but we've done a very poor job of following through. Right? We all have good intentions, right? We want to do great things in our marriage. We want to do great things in our home. And we even want to do great things for the Lord. But somewhere along the lines, we've kind of come up short. And now we're at the halfway point, and we have to analyze and evaluate what are we going to do going forward. And so today is all about that mindset of taking back your life. But before we really dive into that, I just wanted to kind of share with you some of my favorite comeback stories. Some of these are just, they're all sports related, to be honest with you. So you just have, if you don't love sports, I'm sorry. In October 20th, 2004, the Red Sox won the pennant in Game 7 at Yankee Stadium. They came back from being down 3 games to win the pennant, right? They called that overcoming the curse of the Bambino, right? It's a big day if you're a Red Sox fan, especially if you don't like the Yankees. Any Yankees fans in the room? I'm sorry, right? I think there's one. I think I see a few. I see Sam. We love you, Sam. This one's going to hurt a few of you. If you're a local guy, this one's going to sting. It's still going to resonate. We're still not over this one. Patriots win the Super Bowl after trailing 28-3 versus the Falcons. You remember that one, the Falcons? It was so close, but yet so far away, right? The pain of that agony is still real, right? But the Patriots, one of the greatest comebacks in NFL history. The Cubs came back from a 3-1 deficit to win their first World Series in 108 years, right? And growing up, I'm kind of a closet Cubs fan. Honest, transparent moment. My mom was born in Chicago. So growing up, in my mama and papa's house, my papa was a truck driver. So when he was at home, it was on WGN. And when WGN was on, who was on? The Cubs. And you got to hear the classic calls of who? Harry Carey, right? And so once again, the Cubs come back. It's a great moment. He's the greatest, in my opinion, NBA player of all times. 23 years ago, Michael Jordan hit the game-winning jumper with 5.2 seconds left against the Utah Jazz to win yet another NBA championship, right? Michael Jordan, the greatest of all time. Come on now, come on. I love this one. Tracy McGrady scored 13 points in 33 seconds. 13 points in 33 seconds. That's pretty incredible, right? Now, a lot has to happen. Clock management, timeouts. You get it. And this may be one of my favorite. Derrick Rose comes back to drop 50 points. Now, Derrick Rose was a stud coming out. He was kind of like Rookie of the Year. He won the NBA MVP. He was just kind of on this trajectory to be like one of the greatest players in all time in NBA history. And he blows out his ACL. As he's recovering from his ACL injury, he's about 2 months away from being fully recovered from that injury. He tears his Achilles. And his meniscus just riddled with injuries, right? So in 2018 to 2019, this was Derrick Rose's comeback season. On Halloween 2018, Derrick Rose dropped a career-high 50 points in a Timberwolves win against the Utah Jazz. It had been a long 8-year journey for the former MVP. His performance in this game goes to show that you can never count someone out, right? Great story. And then for all the Georgia fans in the room, Georgia pulls off a historic 42-41 comeback victory over the Ohio State Buckeyes in the Peach Bowl to then go on to play in the national championship to win their second consecutive national championship. If you're a Dog fan, say, that's right. I'll give you your moment. I was thinking about using the second down and 26, but I thought I really have no platform to stand on anymore. So I just might as well keep my mouth shut, right? So enough of that. We'll jump right in. Isaiah 43, 18 and 19 says this. Forget the former things. Do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. How many want God to do a new thing? Say yes. Listen, regardless of where you are in life, regardless of where you fall on the spectrum of, man, 2023 has been great, or whether you would say 2023 has been a real challenge, God wants to do a new thing. What do you think the difference is between those who seem to have it all together, working in their favor, right? They have a great relationship. They have a great marriage. They seemingly have great kids. They even have a doodle at home, right? Seems to be the perfect life. Maybe they're financially free. They have a job that they actually love to go and do. They have meaningful ministry. They're making a difference. They love life and they actually love people. Versus the rest of the world who seem to be struggling in their relationship. Their marriage may not be going the way they want it to go. Their kids have absolutely gone crazy. They're financially working jobs that they absolutely hate. They're barely staying afloat. They feel empty. They feel lost. They're losing hope really fast. What's the difference between those two spectrums of people? Let me tell you first what it's not, right? It's not intelligence. It's definitely not talent, and it's not appearance. Right? Some of you are looking at me a little crazy like, of course that would be it. No, it's actually not. Because we've all seen smart people, right? Miserable. We've all seen talented people broke. And we've all seen attractive people who can't hold a relationship. Hopefully you've never dated one of those. So if they're in the room, please don't stare at them, because that would be really awkward, right? That'd be a really awkward moment for you and for them. So what's the difference between those who seemingly have it all together? They seem to have the perfect life, the perfect marriage, the perfect family. Everything seems to be working, versus the rest of the world that seem to be struggling to always make everything work. The difference is simply, it boils down to one word. It's decisions. Decisions. Pastor Craig Rochelle says the quality of your decisions determines the quality of your life. Another way to say that would be the sum total of your life is the decisions that you make. Based on the decisions that you make in your life, I can very accurately probably determine the course of your life. And it's not because I'm super spiritual. It's not because I have some voodoo thing working. It's just the truth. The quality of our decisions will determine the quality of our life. But here's the problem. Here's the real problem, not just for you, it's also for me, so I'm preaching to myself, is we're often not great decision makers. Right? We're often not great decision makers. Anyone besides me ever make a bad decision? Oh, come on. Now listen, it's okay to be honest in church. Anybody else besides me ever make a bad decision? Or even worse, maybe you have a history of just being a bad decision maker. It's not just like one decision, it's like a series of bad decisions. So listen, if you're married in the room and your spouse has a history of making bad decisions, this is not the time to drop that elbow. You know what I'm saying? We don't want any broken ribs today at church. But if that happens, we have a medical team on hand that will take care of all of your needs. Bandage you up, fix you up, get you right back in service. So why is it that we always maybe find ourselves doing things that we don't want to do? We're buying things that we can't really afford. We say things that we obviously regret. And I think the worst one is sometimes we hurt people that we love the most. How come we always find ourselves doing those type things? You know, once upon a time when I was young, which was a long time ago, to give you a little background before I tell this story is I've always had an infatuation with fire. I just love fire. Hence why I probably like summer celebration so much. I like fire. But when I was a little boy, I found a lighter in my pawpaw's shop. And of course, you know, I probably was playing with it. And so he was telling me, hey, stop playing with it, stop playing with it, stop playing with it. Okay, I'll just go where you can't see me play with it. So I went into the bathroom, locked the door, and I was playing with this lighter. And I thought, you know, hey, this is cool. I wonder if I lit this roll of toilet paper on fire, like what would happen? True story. I'm not making this stuff up. So in Aniana, Alabama, I'm locked in the bathroom. I have a lighter and I have a roll of toilet paper, and I sue to catch this roll of toilet paper on fire. So my grandparents start to smell smoke. They see smoke coming out the top and the bottom of the door. Obviously, they're panicked. I'm not. There's a bowl called the toilet full of water, right? What can go wrong? And so I lit this toilet paper on fire, and it kind of went faster than I thought, so I just threw it in the toilet, and it went out, no harm, no foul, except for this. The lighter worked, but so did my pawpaw's belt, because he wore my behind out. I mean, that may be the worst whooping I've ever received in my life. I mean, it hurt for days. You know, when your parents or your grandparents or whoever says, you know, this is going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you. He never said that. He just laid into me like an old school truck driver does, and wow, what a whipping, right? But I made a really bad decision. It was fun in the moment, right? No harm, no foul, but it could have ended really bad. I could have caught the whole house on fire. I mean, I could have burnt myself. I mean, a lot could have gone bad in that scenario. So parents, hide your lighters from your kids. So why do we struggle with making good decisions, right? I think number one, we're overwhelmed with choices. We're overwhelmed with choices. Listen, it has been proven that sometimes we make up to 35,000 decisions a day. Now you may be like, Pastor Matt, I'm smart, but I'm not that smart. I don't make that many decisions a day. Listen, regardless of where you fall on that spectrum, we make a lot of decisions every day, right? You had to make some decisions this morning. Nonstop, all day long. What are we going to wear? What are we going to eat? What are we going to say? What are we going to watch? We're busy shuttling kids all over town. And while I'm still talking right now, you're already trying to decide what you're going to eat for lunch. What you're going to do this afternoon. What are you going to do tonight? Hey, do you have 4th of July plans or not? Are you going to go to where you've been invited? Or are you going to invite some people over? You're constantly making decisions, right? Too many decisions. There's a scientist, a cognitive scientist, they actually say that you can develop decision fatigue. That you grow weary from making decisions. It's often a joke in our house. Chris will be like, hey, Matt, what do you want to eat? I don't care. No, for real, what do you want to eat? I really don't care. What do you want to eat? Hey, how about this restaurant? No, I don't want that. You just said you don't care, but I really honestly do care. But there are times in our life, Christy this is true. I'm like, really, I don't care. I've made decisions all day long. I don't want to make a decision. You put it in front of me, and I'm going to eat it. Hopefully it's good, right? But we make decisions all the time. Listen, hear this. As the volume of our decisions increase, the quality of our decisions decrease. The more decisions that you have to decide on, the quality of those decisions will go down. So maybe you've had a hard, productive day at work. You've made decisions all day long, and you come home and you find yourself making bad decisions. Why is that? Because you're experiencing decision fatigue. Second thing is true is that we're afraid of making a wrong decision or a wrong choice. Anybody ever have this fear of maybe making a decision that's like out of the will of God? Like, come on, you can be honest. You want to please the Lord, so you want to honor God with your life, and you're afraid that decision may not honor God with your life, and so you get caught in that, right? Because at the end of the day, all of us we want to do right. I think at the end of the day, we all want to do right. I don't think there's anybody in the room that just wakes up and says, you know what, I'm just going to do wrong because I want to do wrong. We all want to do right, but sometimes we find ourselves doing wrong. And so many times, since we're not sure what to do, when we don't want to get it wrong, we don't make any decision. Listen, this is going to be an eye-opener for some of you. Indecision is a decision. Your indecision is a decision. So don't say, well, I'm just indecisive. No, your indecisiveness is your decision. That's your decision. Hey, Dustin, could you do me a real favor and check those thermostats in the back? It is hot. I see people fanning it, and I'm sweating. And I don't normally sweat when I preach, so I know it's hot. I often tell people, listen, indecision is the enemy of progress. Indecision, your inability to make decisions will ultimately limit your progress. And the last thing is we let our emotions overrule our logic. Interesting, some decisions we spend way too much analyzing, right? Anybody ever overanalyze something that wasn't really that important? But yet you don't analyze enough on those things that really are important. So I confess, honest confession, Lord is my witness, Chrissy's on the front row. I spent a lot of time analyzing what you're going to see next Sunday night once it gets dark and there's no rain. A lot of time analyzing. I know the soundtrack. I know every firework. I know every effect. I know when everything's supposed to go off to the second. I mean, it is synchronized as you can get, right? And I analyze it, and I analyze it, and I analyze it, and I drive my family crazy. And Chrissy's just like, Matt, it doesn't really matter. It's all just going to go boom anyway. So whether you light it in this order or that order, does it really matter? Does it matter if one's supposed to be blue, but actually it's supposed to be red? Does it really matter? Does it matter if it goes 50 feet or 150 feet? No, it's all going to go boom, Matt. You're driving me crazy. I do that. Y'all pray for my wife. She needs it. So when it comes to important decisions, we don't analyze enough, and oftentimes we react in the moment, right? Anybody ever you reacted to a situation, and maybe you reacted poorly, right? The kids upset you. If you have kids, you've been there. The kids upset you. Logic says to be patient and kind and understanding and forgiving. But our emotion says raise your voice. What were you thinking? Right? Anybody ever done that? Come on now. Or listen, let's get spiritual. We have an unexpected temptation. Logic says, let's be wise. Let's use wisdom. But our emotion says, no one will ever know. Right? So often, it's the emotional decisions that hurt us the most. You get invested emotionally and you make decisions that are not logically sound. And we make decisions that hurt the most. So what are you trying to say, Pastor Matt? Simply this: don't make permanent decisions based on your temporary emotions. So don't make permanent decisions, things that are going to have a lifelong effect off a temporary emotion. Well, I just love her so much. You better be sure you really love her that much, right? And so we can get in trouble if we're not careful. The quality of our decisions will determine the quality of our lives. One of the best ways to live a future focused. Anybody want to be future focused? Right? God's doing a new, what did I say earlier? God's doing a what? A new thing. Everybody say new thing. If God's doing a new thing, then we have to be future focused. People loving, God glorifying life. We have to decide before what we're going to do later. And that's the whole essence of today, is the power of pre-deciding. It's you making the decision now what you're going to have to decide later in life. So you don't have to make the decision later. You've already made the decision now. A great example of this is this afternoon, I will meet with a couple that's getting married very soon. And one of the things that I will tell this couple is, listen, I want you to decide today, like right now, do it right now in the office. Decide today that divorce is not an option. I'll be that black and white. You have to make that decision now, because there will be days in your marriage that it will get hard. There'll be days it'll get tough, and you'll wake up one day and you'll look at your spouse and you're like, really? Why am I here? And if you've left the option open for divorce, then guess what? You'll start looking for the option. Listen, if you're here and you've experienced that, listen, I know there's lots of layers to that. There's lots of circumstance. I'm not here. That's not a judgmental statement. It's just a decision that you have to pre-decide. As followers of Christ, we have to ask God to help us pre-decide. Proverbs 16, verse 3. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plans. Whatever you do. Listen, it doesn't matter what it is. Whatever you do, you should commit it to the Lord. Your family, your marriage, your job, your kids. I mean, everything in your life should be committed to the Lord. That's what making a pre-decision looks like. With God's help, we will determine our course of action before we have the moment of decision. So it looks like this. When faced with blank, this situation, you've already decided what you're going to do in that scenario. It's kind of like the scripture that says, as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord, right? What that means is, regardless of how life happens in your family, you've already predetermined that you're going to, as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. Listen, all hell can break out against you, but listen, as for me and my house, we're going to serve the Lord. Well, I've lost multiple loved ones, and I got laid off from my job, or I've got a bad health diagnosis. Listen, as for me and my house, we're going to serve. It's predetermined. So you're not wavering around trying to make decisions when life is coming at you 100 miles an hour. So here's what it looks like. For example, it could be an example like this. When you're tempted to make an impulse purchase, maybe you should wait 3 days. Let the emotions of that decision kind of go down a little bit, so you can make a logical, sound, decisive, smart financial decision that's not going to strap you, not only short term but long term. Or maybe you're worried. Maybe you have the tendency to worry a lot, or you're anxious, or you're always kind of feeling it in the moment. Pre-decide that you're not going to carry something. You're going to give it to God. You're not going to. You've made the decision. You're not going to unhealthily cope with that burden. You're going to give it to the Lord. What's the Bible say? Cast all of your what? Cares. Not some of them, all of them. You don't get to pick and choose which ones you give and which ones you don't. God wants them all. Or maybe a real life scenario is somebody cuts you off in traffic. You have to have a predetermined decision. How are you going to react in that situation? Are you going to pray that they go to heaven and then try to send them to the, you know what I'm saying? I don't know. We all get caught up in those moments, right? I love this. So many examples in the Bible. I'm going to give you 3 of people in the Bible that pre-decided. They had their decision already made before they were ever faced with a situation that they were going to have to decide, right? A great one is in Genesis chapter 22. God told Abraham to offer his son Isaac. What did Abraham do in that moment? He simply trusted God. He never wavered on that because it was a predetermined. Abraham had already resorted in his mind and in his heart that he was going to trust God no matter what. So when God comes along and says, hey, Abraham, I want you to give your son Isaac. It's not something that Isaac has to pray about. It's not something Isaac had to be in turmoil over. He was already determined in his mind. Okay, God, you want me to sacrifice my son Isaac? Hey, Isaac, I need you to go get certain things together. I'm going to get certain things together, and we're going to go out on this beautiful journey. And I believe every step of the way, Abraham knew. Abraham never once was in a moment where he had no confidence that when he got to the top that he was going to have to go through what God had asked him to do. He was willing to, but I think the whole time he went, his faith didn't get weaker. It actually got stronger because he knew the promise of God was going to be waiting on him at the top. He didn't know how. He didn't know what it was going to look like, but God was going to come through. Why? Because he was a man of faith. He predetermined, Abraham did, that he was going to trust God no matter what. And I don't know about you, but there's times in our lives that, and I'm speaking for me as well, is you just have to predetermine in your heart and in your mind, listen, regardless of what goes on in life, I will trust the Lord. At all times, in every season, in every situation, I'm just going to trust the Lord. So when you do get a bad diagnosis at the doctor, okay, doctor, listen, and there's going to be emotions in that. I'm not trying to discount the emotions that you're going to feel. If I got a bad diagnosis, I would feel the weight of that. And there would be those natural human tendencies that we would have. But I hope that my faith would overwhelm the fear and say, you know what? Despite the diagnosis, we're going to trust God until the very end, right? And Ruth chapter 1, Ruth had already made a decision that no matter what, where Naomi went, she was going to go. Ruth told Naomi, hey, listen, where you go, I go. It's predetermined. Well, maybe, you know what? Maybe that's not the best decision. Maybe I should just stay here. You know what? Maybe I should even go somewhere else. It was a predetermined. Listen, if you've never read the story of Ruth, it's a powerful, powerful story. And then one of my favorites is in Daniel chapter 1. There's so much about Daniel, but Daniel and his friends, they were taken to a foreign land. They were brainwashed, and they were asked to bow down to a king that wasn't the true and living God, and they had already predetermined that they were never going to bow their knee. They were never going to bow their knee. They had predetermined. What I love about Daniel is that Daniel knew what he valued. So he predecided. The question is, what do you value? Your value system is like the things that you stand. It's like those non-negotiables in your life. You know, we have love, grow, help. Those are values of our church. Those are non-negotiables. We're gonna do those things. Excellence is a non-negotiable for us. We're going to do everything to the very best of our ability. That's who we are. What are your values? Do you value integrity? Do you value faithfulness, being a person of faith regardless of the circumstance? Do you value purity? Living pure and blameless before the Lord, doing what is right even when no one's watching? Do you value that? Do you value generosity? Understanding the value that it's more blessed to give than to receive. Is that something that you value? Do you value compassion? Doing for someone else what you wish maybe someone would do for you if you were ever in that situation? What about honesty? Loyalty. Loyalty is like, you know what, you're not going to run out when it gets hard. When it gets hard, you listen. It's just, hey, listen, we're in this thing together. What about courage? It takes a lot of courage to live this life of Christ. Kindness, love, joy, peace. You could go through When your values are clear, your decisions are much easier. When you know what you value and those values are clear, your decisions are much easier. So based on what you value, decide now what you will do later. So I want you to begin to think about in your life, what are some things that you need to pre-decide? Based on God's word. Not based on what a man says, but what God's word says. And then how's that going to play out in your life? You see, we don't often realize it, but our decisions are rarely isolated. This is really great. Your decisions determine your direction, and your direction will determine your destiny. So your decisions are very important. The decisions you make, the decisions I make, my decision today will ultimately affect my tomorrow. It's going to affect my future, right? Your decision today will not only affect today, but it affects your future. Your decisions will always determine your direction, and your direction will always determine your destiny. So listen, if your life is moving in the direction of your decisions, the great question is, do you like the direction your decisions are taking you in? If you don't like the direction that your life is going in, then you need to make some new decisions. Because your direction is simply based on your decisions. So it's time to take your life back, to pre-decide to do something different. You guys can come and play. I'm wrapping up. Can we just have some real talk for just a moment? Some real talk. Can we just let it be real, right? Real talk. Don't judge Pastor Matt. Don't throw stones at Pastor Matt. Don't comment online, oh, Pastor Matt, you're so stupid. I can't believe you're even going to share that, right? Can I be really honest about my own life? I have found at times in my own life, real talk, I can be very inconsistent. I try to always do the right things, but sometimes I get it wrong. And I do things that I don't really want to do. At times I'm unprepared. I'm often prepared for certain things, but not fully prepared for everything. That kind of goes back to that inconsistent. I struggle sometimes with putting more attention on areas that really don't deserve that much attention, but yet the things that need my attention, maybe I don't give it as much as it really needs. Or maybe I don't have anything left to give. I'm literally give out. I'm depleted. Believe it or not, if you know me, you know this is true, but believe it or not, I can be very selfish. I can be short, and at times I can be very angry. If something doesn't go my way, I can get easily annoyed, and oftentimes I can get ticked off. Just being real. And I've had to get really good at learning how to say I'm sorry. Sorry to people that I care a lot about. Sorry to people that I love. Sorry to people that I would lay down my life for. And hopefully next week we'll be able to kind of share with you all the great things God did at church camp this summer. But I was at church camp for 2 weeks, and just give you a little real life story, an example of what I mean by this. At middle school camp, we were all set up. Dustin and I were up at the pavilion and getting ready to shoot off the fireworks show, and Ray Shauner's down on the bridge or the road right there at the lake, and we're shooting from a good distance away. And so all the lights are off, and man, the soundtrack is going, and Leah did a great job on the soundtrack. Everything is perfect. I'm just kind of taking it all in. There's a computer sitting there, and then there's an electronic device. So all together on that tote there was case almost $3,000 of electronics controlling the fireworks show. And this young kid, who was not really a kid, he was working that camp as a lifeguard, came running around with this high-powered water gun and aimed right at those electronics. And Pastor Matt forgot that he was a pastor real quick. And I probably looked like the devil himself. And if I could have gotten my hand on that kid, I probably would have punched him. I was that mad. I'm just being honest. But I yelled at him, and the look in his eyes was like, oh, wow. Like, I never want to do that again, because I never want to see that face again, right? The show went on, and it was great, but man, I just felt man, I felt like little bitty, like horrible. So the show's over, we're packing up the gear, everything's packed up, and it's boys' late night swim, so he's at the pool lifeguard. And I know what I have to do. I go find this kid. This kid goes to a church right outside Augusta. His youth pastor and I serve on the youth board together. I mean, this could go like I could have the conversation, sit. I mean, it could have gone a lot of ways, right? So I went to the kid. He was at the pool lifeguard, and I said, "Hey, man, I need you to forgive me." I said, "Man, I said, in the moment, I said that water gun and all those electronics, and I said I snapped and I wigged out on you really bad. I'm sorry." And he immediately began to apologize to me. "I'm sorry, man. I shouldn't have done that. I know better." I said, "No, listen. What I did was wrong. And I need you to forgive me." You know, sometimes in life we get it wrong. Sometimes we make bad decisions, and sometimes we disappoint not only those around us, but at the end of the day, we probably disappoint ourselves more than anything else. And we walk around and we feel a little bitty. And I just want to remind someone today that you may be in the room and you may be tired. You may be overwhelmed. You may feel angry. You may be emotional. You may be discouraged. You may be depressed. Maybe you just feel really vulnerable right now. Like, listen, I don't want to make any decisions right now because I know what I would do. I would do the wrong thing. Like, I just know. And I'm so thankful that we're not saved by the quality of our decisions, but we're saved by the grace of God. Aren't you glad, thankful of that? Come on now. That we're not saved by the quality of our decisions, but we're saved by the grace of God. Jesus understood the power of pre-deciding. Jesus himself, the Savior of the world, pre-decided when he prayed this powerful prayer. When he's in the Garden of Gethsemane, he's in so much anguish, he's in so much turmoil, he's all over the map emotionally, physically, spiritually. I mean, he is pouring his heart out before the Lord. The Bible says he was in such anguish that his sweat even turned to blood. And he prays this powerful prayer. He said, "God, I really don't want to do this. I really don't. But not my will, but your will be done." It was at that moment that he pre-decided, no matter how hard the cross was, no matter how heavy, no matter how significant the weight of the world would be on his shoulders, that he was going to see it through all the way to the finish. Predetermined in his own heart. This is Jesus. That he was not going to give up. He was not going to give in. He wasn't going to call down the legions of angels from heaven to come to his rescue. He could have done all of those things and then some, right? He's a son of God. But he committed everything in that moment to the Lord. Everything. Just like we read in Psalms just a minute ago. Jesus committed everything in that moment to the Lord. And what I'm asking you to do today is simple. I'm asking you to commit everything to the Lord and allow God to establish his plan in your life. Listen, it doesn't matter how you got to the halfway point. It doesn't matter if you came in here, all four tires on the ground, engine still running good. I mean, you came in here in great condition. Or maybe you pulled up today and listen, you got four flat tires. You barely made it here. Listen, regardless of how you got here, you're here. And it doesn't matter what has happened so far in your life up to this point. What matters now is what you do going forward. It's the decisions that you make right now and your decisions you make in the future that really are going to make the difference in your life. The quality of your decisions will determine the quality of your life. And with God's help, my prayer for you today, this July 4th weekend, is that we will predetermine our course of action. What are we going to do in those situations of our life? Listen, if you are a smart man in the room or a smart woman in the room, you know where you're most tempted at, right? You know where you're most vulnerable. It's in those areas that you have to predetermine first what you're going to do. why I flew off the handle and wore that boy out verbally? I was in a church camp, right? God doing incredible things in the altar, but I was so busy working. Understand the word working? That I just allowed my heart to get a little bit disconnected. In that moment, one squirt of a powerful water gun, and man, I lost it. So many times in our life, we lose it simply. It's not like we go intentionally trying to lose it. We just lose it. We get off track. We get off course. This weekend, as I was trying to put the finishing touches on today, spending some time with the Lord, I just feel like there's some people in the room, and God's getting ready to write an incredible comeback story in your life. That maybe you've not lived up to your own expectations for 2023, but listen, you still got half a year left. You've got a lot of time to get it right. Sir, I know you're in the room and you want to be a good husband. You want to be a good father. Listen, you can still be a good husband and you can still be a good father. You just have to decide today that you're going to do that. And then make every other decision. Make sure that those align with making sure that you ensure yourself the opportunity to be a good husband and be a good father. There's some ladies in the room, and maybe you feel like you've not done the greatest job in serving your family that well. Maybe you feel like you put more energy and time and effort into a career and raising kids, and then you look over at your husband and you're like, man, there's something missing. It's easy to get in those type situations, and I just wanted to come along, ma'am, and just let you know that, listen, it's based on the decisions that you make today. The decisions you make going forward that will determine the quality of your relationships that you want to succeed and be meaningful in your life. So my prayer for you today is that in every situation, in everything, whatever it is, you would simply just commit it to the Lord. Allow God to establish His plans in your life. If the band would come out, if everyone would go ahead and stand in the room, we're not going to give a traditional altar call in the sense, but I'd like for us to sing that song, Worthy of It All. Listen, because at the end of the day, regardless of whether you like this or not, I was thinking about this during worship. Worship is not something that we just do. As a believer, as a Christ follower, worship is who we are. And I think one of the greatest ways today that we can commit ourselves to the Lord so that He can establish His plan in our life is for us to make the decision today. Yes, there's a lot of peripheral decisions that need to get made that are very important. But the greatest decision you can make today is that you're going to honor the Lord with all your heart. You're going to love the Lord with all your heart. You're going to give yourself to the Lord completely. So many times I see people, whether you're young or old, it really doesn't matter. And there's this real struggle to really give everything that you have to the Lord, to really commit everything. And so as we worship, let worship be our moment, our time, our opportunity to say, God, I give you everything of me. Everything of me is like, God, I give you, listen, God, I give you all the things that I do really well, God, but I also give you all the things in my life that I get wrong. God, I give you my selfishness. God, I give you my anger. God, I give you my tendency to sometimes fly off the handle and be short. God, I give you the area of my heart, God, that can so easily get annoyed and ticked off. God, I commit those things to you. Can we do that together as a sign of worship and a sign of surrender? Can we just worship the Lord for a moment?